Hello friends, welcome back to another Year in the Bible video. I'm here in the studio because I'm recording some other videos today, so I decided to do it up here instead of down on the sofa in the piano room where I'm usually at. But I have finished Numbers in my Read Through the Bible plan. I'm actually like a week ahead of schedule. You know, I was trying to read 3 pages a day, and I think I'm 24 or 25 pages ahead, so like about 8 days ahead of my reading plan. So I'm really loving this. And if you missed the last video when I did Leviticus, I kind of shared that the plan here is to not do every week as I go finishing through the Torah, but to kind of change gears and wait till I finish a book of the Bible so each one of these videos can be a reflection on that. So that's what I'm here to do today, is kind of reflect on reading through Numbers. But the plan and the system has still been in place. It's reading 3, sometimes 4 pages a day, using my Pigma Micron pens, using red for asking questions and the blue-black pen for jotting down notes and things like that. The highlighter when something really stands out to me. Yes, I'm still using the Sharpie highlighter. I know some of you are dismayed by that. And then what I did is I finished Numbers, and then at the end, actually today, I did it this morning. I'm recording this just after I sat down with my study Bible and my commentary and kind of went back and reviewed everything from Numbers. And anytime I asked a question, I wrote it down. I tried to find an answer, that sort of thing, and just kind of read some thoughts to recapture. I really enjoyed Numbers. Just kind of, I want to share like a reflection on the last week or so and how it went, what I learned from Numbers, and then some things that are challenging me, I guess I'd say, is the reflection of Numbers was I really enjoyed it. A lot of people said, you know, if you think Leviticus is hard, wait till Numbers. I kind of liked Leviticus was hard for me because there's just so much like rules and regulations and all of that. And Numbers definitely has their count. It's called Numbers because they're doing a lot of counting. There's the census at the beginning and then the census at the end. There's a lot of, you know, kind of instructions for how to go through the camp, go through and move out and the order of everything. There's also some more of those laws in there. So there's definitely some parts of it that are a bit of a snooze and very repetitive. But I also I really loved the narrative portions of Numbers. And it's like a big camping trip, right? Like, so from the end of Exodus, the people have gotten to Mount Sinai. All of Leviticus is the Levitical laws and all the stuff going on, all from Sinai. And they start Numbers off at the base of Mount Sinai. And then God kind of takes them on this camping trip for 40 years, where they go from Sinai to Paran, and then the wilderness of Zin, and then the plains of Moab is kind of where they end, getting ready to cross over into the Jordan. And it's this really big, long, kind of epic journey camping trip. And I really enjoyed that part of it. Just kind of the feeling that we're on the, people who watch my videos know that I'm a big Bible maps person. So I was like grabbing Bible maps and like trying to find out where they were and look. And a lot of people say, historians have said they're not exactly sure what the path was, because I mean it's 40 years in the wilderness. There's a lot of but there's some ideas of how they went down into what's now like Saudi Arabia, Oman, that kind of place, and then going back up. Really, really fascinating. And I have some notes here, but the 3 big things that I noted that I really love about this book, which are famous Bible stories, are the spies going in and checking out the promised land, and they come back out, and most of them are like, no way, and people freak out and rebel against God. But then, you know, Joshua and Caleb were like, no, we can do this, right? So that's a pretty big epic story in the Old Testament. You also have when Moses, instead of speaking to the rock to give water to the people, he strikes the rock, and that really peculiar story about why did Moses do that? And the punishment from God that he would not inherit the promised land. I mean, like that's pretty intense, and it's a really famous story. And that relationship between God and Moses that we see throughout really Leviticus and Numbers is really intriguing to me. And there's some powerful things that are said in here. And then, of course, that really crazy section with Balaam. I always think about the talking donkey when I think about Balaam, but there's like multiple chapters in a row where Balaam is, you know, he's been hired to curse the people of Israel, but then he keeps blessing them because God would not let him curse them, and so he blesses them. So it's just this really, really powerful language and section, and I really just enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty good story. Yes, there was a couple chapters here and there that were like kind of snoozers, but overall, I thought it was really engaging, and I think part of that is because I'm just in the rhythm of reading every day. This past week, in the past 7 days, there was one day, I shared about this a couple of videos ago, I had similar where I had to get up really early and be at work, and it was just a grind all day long. I had my Bible in my bag. Some of you have made fun of me for calling it a briefcase. It's technically a briefcase, but it's kind of a messenger bag. I had it with me, but I never got time throughout my day. I was just going. And I got home. I wanted to spend some time with Becca, and it's like I was literally got into bed, and I was like, oh no, I forgot to read my... And I kind of was happy that I was like, oh, I forgot. I didn't have time today. I was bummed about it. But I didn't beat myself up. I got up the next day and I read 6 pages instead, and I really pressed on. But I think that rhythm that I'm in is part of why I'm enjoying this, is because I'm doing it consistently. If you read for a day or two and then you take 3 or 4 days off, I think it's harder to find that love and that balance and all of the stuff that goes into it, right? So I really enjoyed that, and I have been, like I said, I'm a week ahead, so I feel really good. In other terms of like the big picture of numbers, you've spent this 40 years in the wilderness. One of the things I noted, they have all these numbers, and even in the sections where they're counting people, I was like, man, at the very beginning, they count over 600,000, and they're only counting the men aged 20 and above. And one of the things I thought, and I could be wrong about this, I didn't find a lot about it in the commentaries, but it's like, no wonder they were lost for 40 years and they were traveling under there's got to be well over 1 million, maybe 2 million Israelites. And it's going to take them a while to break camp and to move around. And yes, there's this punishment from God for not trusting him, where the people who came out of Egypt are not going to inherit the land. It's only the next generation. And that's part of the 40 years in the wilderness. But I was thinking about like just what a massive undertaking it would be to get everybody packed up and to get moving. And I mean, there's over 1 million people moving around. Pretty wild to think about all that. So, but it's cool to kind of just see the journey. And they're really ready now to enter the promised land. But we know that that's not going to happen until Joshua. So we still have Deuteronomy, and Moses is really going to kind of finish everything off here for the books of the Torah. So I'm excited about diving into that. I start that tomorrow because I finished Numbers, as I'm recording this, I finished Numbers yesterday. This morning was my study day, and then tomorrow I'm going to dive in to Deuteronomy. So overall, I think it's going really well. Thinking about that, the 40 years and the sin and the judgment, there's just a lot of that in these first 2 books of the Bible where there are consequences for sin. I'm thinking about that a lot. I'm thinking about God's judgment, God's holiness and righteousness. We talked about a lot of that in Leviticus. And now here it is just like obeying God and following through and not complaining, right? And there's some struggles there for the people. It's this continual back and forth between them and God. And yet he, again, continues to be gracious. There are consequences in that grace. But they're moving forward, and he's not abandoning his people. I shared earlier that I was going to share some stuff that's challenging to me. I'm just being honest, and I don't have an answer for this right now. Maybe I'm going to find one as we continue, but I'm really struggling with the violence in these texts. Do you resonate with that? There is so much violence. There is so much, just obliterating entire people groups, and that being ordained by God. And it's really been challenging to me to read that and to try to wrap my head around what that says about God's character and how I feel about all that. It just feels really, really harsh. And one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot is the juxtaposition of that with who we know of the person of Jesus and what he taught about turning the other cheek, and what he taught about loving your neighbor and loving your enemy, and all of those things. I'm wondering. I've been walking around Belmont's campus where I work yesterday, thinking about like the violence of the Old Testament and the peacefulness of Jesus, and thinking maybe Jesus is redeeming some of this stuff. Again, I don't know how to play that out theologically. I haven't done a deep dive. I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, so don't hold me to this theologically. But I'm just wrestling with the idea of maybe Jesus is a corrective to some of this, but also thinking about the sheer violence of what happened to Jesus on the cross and leading up to the cross. That really seems to play into all this. In my head, I was like, man, if I ever did a PhD program, I got a PhD in theology, maybe I would write my PhD project would be about the violence in the Old Testament and the connectedness to Jesus. That would be really interesting to me. So I do make this request. If you have some thoughts on that, or you have resources or books you've read, I would be interested to check out some of that. So if there's some things you have to share with me, leave those in the comments for sure. But overall, Numbers was kind of a fun journey for me. I felt like I was journeying with the people of Israel through the wilderness, and I definitely saw things in Numbers, again, that I've never seen before. And I think part of it is just the consistency and the rhythm of being in the text. So I would love to know if you are on this journey with me, where you're at in your reading plan, what you have been learning from Numbers. So drop that in there as well if you have comments about that. I'm going to be diving into Deuteronomy, and when I finish that, I'm going to be doing another video, my next video. I am traveling next week, and so I'm actually recording some new music. I'm really excited about that. I'll tell you more about that later, but I'm going to take this with me, getting on an airplane, that sort of thing, so I'm going to be taking that with me. I did take this with me during Numbers to New Orleans. Our nephew got baptized, and so we went down to New Orleans with family, and I took this with me and had a really fun time, like reading my Bible as a traveler. I read a lot on the plane and stuff like that, so that was cool. But yeah, it's been good. I don't want to belabor this video. It's just, this is one of those kind of like nothing too exciting in the update here, but it's going well. I'm sticking with it. I encourage you, if you are reading the Bible, to stick with it, to go through it this year. If you've struggled, it's okay. You can hop back on and make it up. It's not about just finishing it and reading in a year. It's about soaking it in and really loving it and spending time with God and learning through the Bible. So I did want to leave you with this. I love this prayer, this benediction. It's called the priestly benediction from Numbers chapter 7, and I kind of want to just read this to you and over you as we close out our video. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. We'll see you next time.